Hey everyone, it's Amy from thecrazycraftlady.com. I'm here today to share 3 new crafts that all start with the same basic supply, and that is a heart-shaped wire wreath form. So if you've been to a dollar store lately, like I know Dollar Tree has them, or if you've even been to a craft store, you've seen they're a super basic heart-shaped wreath form made from wire, right? Super great way to quickly and easily decorate for Valentine's Day. My secret sauce for quick and easy seasonal decor, especially for holidays that kind of have a shorter shelf life, like Valentine's Day, right? Wreaths and pillow covers. All you gotta do is pop a new wreath on the door and swap out the throw pillow covers, and you're good to go, right? So I decided that I wanted to try to take this heart-shaped wire wreath form, say that 10 times fast, heart-shaped wire wreath form, right? And decorate it in a few different styles because I know we all have different home decor styles. We all kind of like things different. I personally am not a big fan of red and pink at Valentine's Day. I know that's kind of controversial, but I really have been enjoying all of my neutral colors lately. So come craft with me. We're gonna do this 3 different ways. I'm actually gonna use a couple pops of color. I'm even gonna use red, which is super rare for me outside of Christmas. So let's get making. All right, so first up, I started with these little mop head covers. They're from the Dollar Tree. They're like these white little fuzzy things for like a steam mop cover, right? I initially thought that I was gonna cut them into strips and like almost make like a tie wreath, and that quickly I discovered was a huge mistake because these things shed like crazy if you cut them. So you have to keep them whole, otherwise you're gonna have a huge, big old mess on your hands. So instead what I did is I just kind of laid these in like segments to cover the wreath form. So, I started at the base and I just used a pile of hot glue, right? Along both sides, along the long edges, and then along like the short edge at the bottom. And then just like folded in the edge of the mop head cover there, right? So there's more hot glue at the bottom to cover the end. And then I hot glued in that other edge as well. And then it was time to add another mop head cover, to cover the other side of the heart. And I just kept repeating the process all the way around. And then it was a little trickier around the curved parts of the heart. So you just got to make sure that you get like you got to pull it real tight as you glue it into place. So like I said, I used 4 mop head covers on this, and the final one was just too big. I couldn't make it work. So I did have to cut it down to size, which, like I said, it's gonna be messy, whatever. So I just trimmed like, I don't know, 3 inches off the end of one of those mop head covers. And then I tried to pull away any of the excess, threads so that I wouldn't have a shedding, heart wreath later on. And then I hot glued that into place as well. So you can see here, I'm just pulling everything tight to secure it as the hot glue dries, which you all know happens very, very quickly. And then it was time to make a little bow. So I found this, like I said, I used red, you guys. This is a big deal for me in the land of my neutral loving heart. I used this red and white check ribbon that I got at the Dollar Tree. And I just made like 2 little figure 8s, right? I looped it back and forth. And then I added 2 little lengths of burlap ribbon, which is also from the Dollar Tree. I just cut that burlap ribbon at a 45-degree angle and stacked them on top. And then I decided that my red check ribbons were a little bit too long, so I just shortened them up just a little bit, but I still kept those little figure eights, stacked the burlap ribbon on top, and then tied everything together in the center with another length of red and white ribbon. And then just like, fluff the bow out and then secure it in place with a little bit of hot glue. Next up, I went for a very springy Valentine wreath. And honestly, I don't even think this one feels like a Valentine wreath. I think it just looks like a spring wreath that happens to be in the shape of a heart. So I think I may actually put this up and keep it up, through most of the springtime. But I got these silk rose flowers from the Dollar Tree. And I wasn't sure how I wanted to get them to stick onto the wire wreath form, because normally I would want to use like a foam wreath form or grapevine or something, right? So I had to turn the wire form into a foam form. And the way that I did this may have been a little excessive, but I don't know, I didn't want my wreath falling apart. So I hot glued foam to the wreath form, and then I tied it with a piece of twine. So I buy twine at the Dollar Tree, and I'll buy like 3 or 4 rolls at a time. I use it in absolutely everything, right? And I just, put a little hot glue down the center of the foam, press it into place. It's okay to push part of that wire into the foam itself, and then just tie it with twine to secure it. That way, I don't know, if the hot glue isn't perfect or fails, the twine is there to pick up the slack, I guess. And then here came the fun part. Disassemble all of your stems of flowers. So like I said, these are roses from the Dollar Tree, and I just thought these light blush pink colors were so pretty. And so I just popped each flower off the stem, and then to be extra cautious, right, put a dab of hot glue onto the base of each flower head, and then just push it right into that foam. And so I did a variety of the light pink and the dark pink. You guys could do whatever color you want. You could do red and white, you could do all red, you could do all white. The possibilities are absolutely endless. And so what you want to do is just fill everything in, put all the flowers into place, and then if there's any gaps between the flowers, fill them in with leaves. So I'm going to speed this up because this is, quite the process. The one thing that I will say is when you stick the leaves between the flowers, don't just stick one set of leaves. Stick 2 or 3 at random intervals. I think it just looks better that way to have larger bunches of leaves stuck between all of the flowers. And then if you're wondering how many flowers you need, I used 7 bunches or stems of these dollar store flowers. And then my third wreath is using, once again, you guys, I told you I wasn't kidding. I think I'm gonna use black and white check in some form in every video tutorial that I make this year. I just can't help myself. I'm just I'm on this big kick. So I bought this black and white check fabric. I think I got this stuff at Joann Fabrics, but I mean, it's just flannel, in the, I don't know, the clothing, quilting fabric area. I am not a quilter. I'm not a fabric expert. Ask my sister. She's the pro. But I just took out my rotary cutter and my mat. But if you don't have a rotary cutter, you can just use scissors. These cuts do not need to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination. All you want to do is just cut a bunch of 2-inch strips. So here I'm going to cut a bunch of them, and then you can go ahead and lay those strips down on the mat and then cut them into 10-inch strips. So you want to have a bunch of 2-inch by 10-inch pieces of this fabric. And you can tell, like, ooh, y'all, I struggle with fabric cutting. I am not a quilter. Like, my cuts are not perfect, right? My lines are not perfect, and that's totally fine, because once you put these on the wreath, no one is gonna notice or care, right? So I'm gonna speed this up. Here's how I cut all my fabric. I ended up cutting 80 pieces of 10-inch by 2-inch fabric. So 80 pieces, 10-inch by 2-inch. And I ended up, I think, using 75 of them. So the fabric that I bought was 44 inches wide, or 22 inches folded in half when I cut it. So if your fabric is 44 inches wide, if you buy 1 1/4 yard of fabric, you should be just fine to make this wreath. This Dollar Tree wreath form at the widest part is 13 1/4 inch wide. And like I said, I cut 80 strips of fabric. I used 75 of them. Granted, this is a thicker fabric. It's more of a flannel. It's not like a cotton quilting fabric. So that comes into play too. So if you use a thinner fabric, you'll probably need more yardage. And then I just went tying. So this is a great, Netflix project, right? Or listen to music or a podcast or whatever you want, and just piece by piece tie the strips of fabric onto the wreath form. The one thing that I will say is you want to alternate. Like, you don't wrap it. So there's 1, 2, 3 layers of that wire, right? There's the outer, there's the middle, and there's the inner. So you are either going to tie the piece of fabric around the outer and the middle, or the inner and the middle, not around all 3 at any given time. And then you just want to alternate. So around the outer 2, and then around the inner 2, and then the outer 2, and then the inner 2. So back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And that's how you get things, to be evenly filled, right? And I'm going to show you here, here's a picture of the back of the finished wreath. You can see it's every other outer, inner, outer, inner, outer, inner. But yeah, so that's it. And then you just keep tying and keep tying all the way around. It's a little kind of trickier around the curved parts, but just make sure that, especially around the edges, all of that green wire is covered. And the nice thing about the fabric is you can kind of slide it around and kind of play with it to get, everything evenly full. But that's it, y'all. 3 new little heart-shaped wreaths. I thought this was such a fun project to work on. I really, I love these wire wreath forms, and the possibilities are absolutely endless. If you have a favorite, I would love for you to share what it is in the comments. Until next time, happy making.